A reading from the Acts of the Apostles. Now in Joppa there was a disciple whose name was Tabitha, which in Greek is Dorcas. She is devoted to good works and acts of charity. At that time she became ill and died. When they had washed her, they laid her in a room upstairs. Since Lydia was near Joppa, the disciples who had heard Peter was there sent 2 men with the request, "Please come with us without delay." So Peter got up and went with them. When he arrived, he took them into the room upstairs. All the widows stood beside him weeping and showing the tunics and other clothing that Dorcas had made while she was with them. Peter put them all outside, and he knelt down and prayed. He turned to the body and said, "Tabitha, get up." And she opened her eyes, and seeing Peter, she sat up. He gave her his hand and helped her up. Then he called the saints and widows, and he showed her to be alive. This became known throughout Joppa, and many believed in the Lord. Meanwhile he stayed in Joppa for some time with a certain Simon, a tanner. Today it's often called Sheep Sunday, when you think about Jesus as a good shepherd, hence the 23rd Psalm. And it's a reminder, the 23rd Psalm is that a shepherd in the days of Jesus was not a very prestigious job. In fact, it was one of the lowest jobs you could have in society. It was also a dangerous job. You took the sheep out into the wilderness. You had to protect them against wild animals, against anyone who might come and steal them. You were out there without any toilet facilities or showers, and you lived quite a rough life. So when God calls himself a shepherd, he's saying how much he loves us and how far he is going to go to take care of us. But of course, the other thing is that sheep are completely dependent upon their shepherd to make sure they get to still waters. The reason that still waters are important is that sheep's noses and mouths are so close that if it's running water, they can't drink. So the shepherd has to make sure they have good water, food, and protection. And that's what God is for us. But what I really want to think about today is the reading we just had from Acts, where Peter goes to bring this woman Tabitha, or Dorcas in Greek, back to life. A couple things that I think we want to point out about that. First, it's just amazing, starting with Easter morning, with the women going and discovering that Jesus has been resurrected, and just throughout all the Gospels and the New Testament, just how important women were. We have to remember that in this time, women were, for the most part, not seen. They had no social power. They were very much under the control of men. But yet, throughout the New Testament, it seems that women play a very, very important role. And one of the charges are made against Christians very early on is that they sort of pull women away from their families and go after women and sort of cause dissension within the house. So obviously women were very key in the early church. The second thing is that she is recognized for her charity and good works. There's the widows standing there showing them the clothes she has made for them, weeping because of how good she's been to them. And again, this association that somehow the best way for Christians to share the gospel is to share the love of God, to be servants, to bring relief to those in need. And when Christians forget that and get caught up in trying to prove themselves right, try to show others that they have to, that they're better than them, things go very wrong. So perhaps today we should all dedicate ourselves once again to being like Tabitha, the one who brings relief and love and comfort to those in need. But one last thing in this, and it's very interesting, that we've told the last line is that Peter's staying with a man named Simon, and Simon is a tanner. Now, tanning is a very smelly profession. You use urine, it's rotting skins and all the other things, and in Jewish life was considered unclean. And in Jewish life, the world was divided up between those who were ritually clean, who were able to worship and be part of the community, and those who weren't. So someone like Simon would be ritually unclean and therefore on the edge of society, an outcast, not really seen as a proper, a good Jew. Yet Simon is staying with him. And so this seems like another moment where we're seeing the early church crossing boundaries. In the next part of the reading, we'll hear about Peter going to bring the Greeks into the religion, into the Christianity, and maybe this was part of what was going on here, because of the fact that Tabitha's name is translated into Greek, maybe she was a Greek speaker as well, and so she might well have been a Gentile. So this is the crossing over, and the willingness for the church, the early church, to stand with those who are on the edge, those who are excluded, those who are the exploited of society. So while we think about shepherds and maybe have a very romantic view of what a shepherd is, the reality is shepherds are a hard task. It's caring for the sheep. And like Dorcas, we are called to be the shepherds that care for the sheep of today.